Hello everyone, Exilium here, and today I wanted to take a quick look at Macchiato and what we would be looking at with her teams once we get her, once she comes out. Right now we are limited on a lot of the units that we're going to have in the future. They're going to work really well with her. Now we have the ice support that will come up in the future that will by default be one of her best teammates. But then we also have some other supports that are off element that could also work really well for her. But currently we're going to be very limited in what we can use with her, especially when it comes to the content that requires two separate teams. And we can kind of take a look at what I have here. Now I have pretty much all the SR units, and I have a bulk of the other standard SSRs. Now one person I think that will work really well with her will be Chongzhou. But there is one single problem with that, is that Chongzhou is going to be kind of good being on that burn side of things, because you're going to need two teams. So you pretty much want her, Sharkry, Krolik, and Kesnia, and then also Cheetah, depending on the needs on that content. So even though Chongzhou is going to probably be your best, to me, the best alongside her, because she can trigger her support action alongside the support actions from Makiatto's Overwatch attacks, she's better off being on that second team, because her and Sharkry and the other burn teams can do some major damage to the enemy. So if we kind of take out the burn units as being available to her, what else do we have that can really work alongside her? Now, the first big thing is Suomi. By default, everybody should have Suomi, and I pretty much assume that because pretty much everybody should have pulled for her because of how good she is as just a sustain in general. Now, when it comes to the content, you have Kesnia for your healer on the Chongzhou side, so you're going to have Suomi the pair well with your Makiatto. So right there you have two of the units. So the other ones I'm kind of looking at would be something like Nemesis or Mosin Nagant, depending on what you currently have. One reason they'll work really well is because a lot about ice is slowing down the enemies, keeping them from closing that gap. And so if you have extra snipers, you can just keep your distance to avoid damage to them. And so they overall can work well together. And then you have Mosin Nagant, who can also do her own support actions, just like Chongzhou can, except the difference being she requires them to be stability broken. But that's not going to be too hard with some of the team setups. So she can work really well. And then the really nice thing about her and Nemesis is that Macchiato is going to want their common keys. And so you're going to want to build them anyway to get their common keys to give them to Macchiato, because you have hers, which is attack boost of 5% when this unit is under the effective insight. So she can be, Macchiato can be under the effective insight. It's like basically part of her passive. She's pretty much always going to have a 7% damage dealt increase from that. So that one's going to be very key on her. So if you have Mosin Nagant, you're going to want to build her just for that alone. But I think she will also pair well with her initially as kind of a good teammate to have to keep the distance. And then you have basically Suomi, and you can bring like Lotto to be your teammates that are going to be a little bit closer to the enemies, also helping keeping the distance because they can put those ice debuffs on them. But if you don't have Mosin Nagant, then you also have Nemesis that everybody has that we got for free. And she works really well in the same capacity. She has her own support actions. She can do some defense down. And then she also has her own common key. When this unit is under the effects of insight, like I said, you're always going to have with her gained 3 additional tiles of movement after killing an enemy target. And so that is going to be extremely useful for helping keep the distance away from the enemy, because that's the big thing with your snipers, especially on that ice side of things, is you want to keep her shield up 1. And I did learn that her shield does not stack with Suomi's. Suomi's will take priority over hers, meaning it's bigger, so hers will be basically be her main shield, but it counts towards that frost barrier buff. And so you always want to keep the distance because you do not want the shield breaking. So having that extra tile movement will be good. So even if you don't want to use Nemesis alongside her, you're going to want to go over this one so you can get the common key for her. But she also has a lot in her kit because you can pair them together. Now, one big negative thing about Nemesis is she doesn't have as much movement, but she can bring some of those debuffs on the Corrosive side that can help on doing more damage and getting those kills as needed. But another unit that, let me see, another one that I think might work really well on the support side of things if you didn't want to bring like another sniper, or maybe you didn't need that AoE of Lotto and then you want to bring one of the snipers. The other one that I like is Nagant here. And that is because she has a lot of debuffs that she can apply to the enemies to just help with doing significant damage. The big thing being, if we look at it here, she can put Vulnerable 1, just a nice increase the damage taken by them. And then you have Acid Corrosion, reduces defense by 30%. And then if you've got the weapon, if you got Macchiato's weapon, then you also can get a lot of defense. So you can ignore a lot of their defense if you apply this alongside theirs. So I think the Corrosive, like a dual role of ice and corrosion, might actually be the way to go with the current units we have. So someone like Nagant and Nemesis on the corrosive side, and then you have Macchiato and Suomi on your ice side, and they can both kind of work off each other quite well. Other than that, I mean, you have a lot of the other units that you can kind of mix in here, because at this point, sometimes you're going to have Suomi on her side. You're not going to want to bring Suomi on the fire side if you have Changzhou, or your other side if you build around a different element. But then there's also one more unit that everybody should have here within the next couple weeks that I don't currently have, but I will be getting, and that is going to be Sabrina. And that is because in the boss fight, which it will be resetting here in 13 days, you should have already, or if you have not yet, be buying all 3 of the copies that you can get in this shop after you've done the boss fights. That'll bring you up to 15 copies of the Sabrina Neural Archive. It takes 30 of this currency to be able to make an entire unit. And so next month when it resets, there'll be 3 more to get. You get those 3 and you will get your first copy of her if you don't already have her. And I think she'll pair extremely well with this team. It makes it even more tanky because she's a tank on her own. And so you pair her alongside Suomi, and they can kind of take that front line. And then you'll have your Macchiato in the back, Nemesis, or whoever really you want at that point. You can take a Nagant to get some debuffs. Pretty much anybody's going to work at that point because you're going to just have so much in terms of sustained / keeping your team alive. And then another one, if you're able to bring Sabrina, a really good unit that you can pair is you can go with that Hydro Ice team, and because you can take someone like Tololo if you have Tololo. I know a lot of people when they re-rolled, they went for Tololo. So Tololo will pair extremely well with the Sabrina side of things. Everybody should have Suomi, so you'll have Suomi, and then you'll have Macchiato, so you'll have that dual ice water going, and they can kind of pair off each other nice and well there. So that's another kind of direction. So we'll have a lot of options while limited, and it's not going to be her best of the best like we can expect here in the future when we get some more units and kind of discussing what her future teams look like. But for now, there are plenty of options. The biggest one is that the burn side of things is kind of isolated to their own, at least in my opinion, because they're kind of the main team that can kind of get things done from an element standpoint that does not need Suomi. A lot of the other teams that I kind of look at don't look to be able to handle themselves as well on the content with their teams. Like, because the other people you have, so you have Kesnia as being one of your healers, and she's already burn sided, so she benefits the burn team. But then the other one, being Colfine, she does not provide, I mean, she provides pretty good heals on her own, but really not much else. So it really makes it where burn is like your other main team until you start getting some more of the SSRs. And so with that, you can kind of see that we have plenty of options, even though they're kind of limited at this point with the SRs, because we did have plenty of stuff given to us at the beginning. Everybody has at least one of the SSRs from the standard, maybe more depending on how lucky they are if they're pulling on that banner. But then again, everybody's also going to be guaranteed Sabrina in a couple weeks. So we're going to be sitting in good shape to kind of build around her. And then we'll kind of see when we get our next units after this. Like I've said in my previous videos, I'm predicting it's probably going to be someone like Senarusi, because she's going to pair well with a team like on the burn side, and they kind of given us those burn units. Or I think they could also give us an SSR support unit. So someone like Lena, who, while she's on the lightning side, she can do a lot for any of the teams. Like, I think she's going to be a good general support unit for any teams because of a lot of the CC and stuff she has. And so we're going to get future better options too, as well as new units come out, because the big thing is they're going to try and probably do the orders in ways so that units next to each other work really well. And so we have future options. Now, the one problem is if we've pulled for Suomi, everybody's pretty much pulled for Suomi. And then if you're pulling for a Macchiato, which is going to takes a certain amount of pulls to get her, then it begs the question of, are you going to have enough left over to get the unit after them? And so we'll just kind of have to see at that point, because I know a lot of people also want to go for her V1, but that also brings into question, are you willing to potentially miss the next unit, which could be a really good support / healer for your other teams as well? Because one thing I definitely would not want to miss is if Senarusi is the one after her, you do not want to miss that, simply because then that finalizes your burn team being in good shape, and then you can kind of move another unit around to make 2 fairly good teams now, because you'll have the sustain to keep them alive. And then I say, even if you're not going for the burn side of things, Senarusi is going to be great for any team, just like Suomi is great for any team. Because the biggest thing that I'm struggling with right now in boss battles is being able to sustain my team on the team that Suomi's not on. Now I can sustain them, but I can't keep them alive forever, and so it becomes a battle of attrition where you want to kill the boss faster than it can kill you. Once we get that second SSR sustain, maybe it could be a Senarusi, or they could throw a curveball and throw Springfield out here immediately. Who knows? But getting that second big sustain is going to be huge, regardless of the team directions you're going and the elements you're using, because they can generically fit in any of the teams. They're just really, really good for their specific element. But to kind of end it, that was just some of my thoughts on the team builds for her. Macchiato is going to be great as soon as she comes out. I'm excited to be actually able to get her. It's a nice second unit that they're bringing out. It's going to kind of shore up the damage that everybody has. And so just after that, we're just needing that extra sustain and we're going to be good to go. But yeah, if you like my content, if you could like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps. And thanks for watching.